everybody. This is Rory Francis, and you're watching another episode of Igniting American Manufacturing. And I was recently asked why we do this show. Well, we're at an inflection point globally, and more so here in the United States, and we have some issues around manufacturing and data centers that we need to address. And it's going to take a collaborative effort. We're going to need academia involved. And we do have quite a few people from academia on the show, government collaboration, and more so, and here's where the heavy lifting comes in, from actually OEMs and industry and service providers. And today we have a special guest, someone I've known for 20 plus years, has a long history in high-tech manufacturing, data centers, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about from the industry part of that triangle. Welcome, Stephen Pettis with Suffolk Construction. Stephen, how are we doing today?
Great, Rory. It's so good to be visiting with you today and be able to share, some of my experiences and what I'm witnessing in the marketplace today.
Well, Stephen, we have each other at an advantage. We know each other for a long time. I know where you worked, and you've worked for pretty much all of the big data center providers, but we're going to get that into a second. So you are and I didn't know this, I thought it was Montana, but you're a native to?
North Dakota.
North Dakota, and then you went to Montana State. That's where I got it wrong. So you're definitely up there in the northwest part of the country, some beautiful country there. And tell me a little bit, about your history, in construction. You started off on the commercial side and then segued. Just give us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm second generation. My dad worked for Bechtel my whole life building power plants, so we traveled all over the world, United States, going from power plant job to power plant job. And he was also an electrical engineer, and I started out in electrical engineering in the commercial sector, and just kind of learning the ropes on the design side, and working for a smaller firm, and then got some opportunities to do some more advanced things, more challenging things in the industry.
And that's high tech, pretty much, right?
Yes. High tech is just kind of where it's at. If if you really want to test yourself and get to the top of the challenges in your industry and find out just what you're made of. So that attracted me, and so I started working in semiconductor facilities and other high-tech facilities, and that turned into data centers somewhere down the road, and been doing that for most of the last 15 years in one fashion, form, or another.
So yeah, commercial is a viable industry. Focus here is about manufacturing and high tech. Which did you prefer? Did you prefer one or the other, the commercial side or the high tech side? And tell me why.
Well, growing up around, power plants, I always liked the more industrial and high tech industry. But I really fell in love.
Much more complex.
Yeah, the complexity was great. I mean, as an engineer, that complexity is kind of what you got into your degree to do is to solve challenging problems and to build, really innovative things. And that attracted me, and I found myself rising to the challenges and growing and learning every day. And that growing and learning was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So complexity, pretty intriguing. And I know you've worked, and we're not going to mention actual names, but a majority of the major data center service providers out there, pretty much all of them actually, I know for a fact. Pretty cutting edge kind of stuff. Am I wrong in saying that?
No. I mean, especially today where we find ourselves moving into the AI world in force, the facilities get much more complex and obviously much more interesting, more challenging to build. But building the Internet of Things and these advanced machines is really, really interesting on a daily basis.
So when you're developing cutting edge technology, a lot of times, we talk in the industry about BKMs, best known methods. When you're doing nanosand or cutting edge technology, there are no BKMs. It's Pandora's box. It's new, and that takes it's a challenge, and it takes a unique culture. How much is a corporate and business culture, how important has that been to you personally and in your management style?
Well, I'm very passionate about it as someone who came up through the ranks to a business leader. I think culture is what makes the difference between highly successful outcomes and less successful outcomes. So, my business philosophy as a leader is to create environments where people can be very successful in all the things they aspire to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I talk about this, and we talk about manufacturing as a whole here, but we tend to focus on high tech, and maybe that's my bias. I'm a semiconductor guy and EV and data centers. And right now, semiconductor is iterating and growing at a rapid pace, and the U.S. is reshoring, so that's exacerbating a condition there. The EV ecosystem is nanosecond, and we're talking about EV batteries and the cars, the recycling, the mineral processing, the mining, and then the infrastructure. And then, Michael Dell was down at Southwest by Southwest, and someone was talking about how our need for data centers was going to grow 10x in the next 10 years. And he turned around and corrected him. He says, with AI, it's going to grow 100x. We're falling behind. I mean, data center growth is exponential, and we just can't keep up. And AI is definitely the jet fuel on that. And now we're talking about specific AI, specific data centers, and data farms. And the biggest problem well, there's several problems with that. We can't build them quick enough, can't get enough contractors. But there's two major problems. We don't have enough power. We'll leave that one for another time. Between semiconductor, data centers, and EV, they all fight for the same high-tech skill level of employee. So we have a workforce development issue. Depending on who you ask, and there's numerous polls out there. There's an estimate, as goes as high as 4 million. The number I hear quoted the most is 3.8 million deficiency in factory workers or high-tech folks by 2030. So that'll, two things: we need to work on our workforce development and recruit. But again, part of that is half of that battle is retention and culture. Is that something that you think about? I mean, I think about it on a daily basis. Is that something that when you're making decisions and trying to build a culture, is that a consideration?
Absolutely. I mean, when I made my last decision on where to go to work, it was primarily based on corporate culture, and because it's so hard to find qualified, talented resources in an industry where there's so much demand. The really talented resources are all busy, and occasionally one is ready to make a move, and you need to be attractive to that talent so that you have something to offer them as far as the future and professionally. So it's incredibly important. It's becoming more important on the daily basis. I wake up thinking about it. I go to bed thinking about it, because if you can't retain your talent, your business shrinks. And with the demand growing, businesses need to grow to keep pace with that demand, and that's becoming more challenging on a daily basis.
I had a gentleman on here, Wayne, and he actually brought a plethora of information and one of the things he gave through the 5 things that employees are working for, and they do this survey every couple of years, and historically the number one was pay. Well, just most recently post-COVID, it came back. Pay was like number 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 was culture. Number 2 was an opportunity to upskill and train. Training was huge, and then 3 was benefits. I think, I'm sorry, 4 was pay, but it was down there. It didn't make the top 3. That's never really happened before. So when we talk about culture and we talk about training and upskilling, and that's part of your retention, is that something Suffolk or some of the firms that you've worked with have been looking at, is upskilling and retraining existing staff?
Yes, absolutely. As we see different business lines decline in demand, and other business lines like mission critical and high tech, grow so fast, it becomes incredibly important to take the translatable skills of the employees that you have in one business line and move them over to another business line. And that puts a big burden on the folks in the existing business line that have that skill set and have that knowledge about the nuances of that particular build to translate it to those folks. So now, instead of focusing just on building for their clients and building for the business, they're also become coaches and mentors and teachers, and they have to parse out a part of their time to be teaching, because if they don't, you can't get enough resources to grow.
Sure. Yeah, no, I believe any company that's in the high-tech sector today needs to have a robust training program. It's showing as part of that culture. You're showing that you value your employees, so it's super important. I'm going to go tech on you. I'm going to go ask you a tech question, because we're talking about data centers. So, and here's a subject that I've had several people on, and you can go 100 different ways. You mentioned the Internet of Things, and I talk about smart manufacturing and the use of Internet of Things and digital transformation, and that the more we use the Internet to transfer data, the more vulnerabilities we create to cyber hacking or cyber issues. And in the data center world, I mean, that's paramount and stuff. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on cybersecurity and where we're going with AI, and any vulnerabilities or any strategies. Just share a little bit about your thoughts on addressing cybersecurity in data centers. And I know I threw that curveball at you. Sorry about that one.
No, it's all good. The thing that we've learned all along is that as you create more technology and more capability, you also create more vulnerability. So then you have to react to that vulnerability and create more resiliency. So, this is a constantly, evolving cycle of technology, and AI gives us the opportunity to create more enhanced software cybersecurity. And it also gives other folks the ability to, hack that in a much more efficient manner. So, this will be something we watch over the next decade evolve, and it will always be a challenge, and we'll always have to, be addressing that challenge. It's really no different than COVID, in that the world sort of got hacked by a disease that we weren't entirely prepared for, but we responded, and now it's not something that we fear every day. And so in the cyber world, it works kind of the same way.
Mm-hmm. Nice analogy. I like that. That's true. And you couldn't be more correct. We'll address vulnerabilities, and we'll create new ones, and we'll address vulnerabilities. And like I said, AI, I don't think anyone thought it was going to take off as quick as it has, and it's growing. I'm not quite sure really anyone could tell you where it's headed. So yeah, no, it's definitely ongoing. It's a major concern. My exposure to it has been fairly limited in my career, and then it was, I had a cybersecurity guy who took care of that for me on my builds, and brought his concerns to me. But now it's a daily part of my conversations, and it needs to be. I think that's one of our big challenges. So, the U.S. and globally, with semiconductor exploding, and it really is. And I talked about that triangle, of semiconductor, EV, and data centers. They all have a symbiotic relationship, when you build an EV. So a Ferrari had, Porsche 911 had, in the 70s, had 8 computer chips in it. Today, it has over 8,000 computer chips in it. EV cars are using tons and tons silicon carbide and other substrate chips. So as we build out our EV ecosystem, we need more chips. As we do all that work, we create more data. We need more data centers. We need more chips for the data centers, and it's this symbiotic relationship, and they're all growing very, very rapidly. And AI, and I say it all the time, it's jet fuel. It's jet fuel. So we're definitely at an inflection point here. I think we're the U.S. and globally, and the EU included in that, have finally woken up, and we're doing a lot of taking a hard look at ourselves, and it's about time. At no time, and I get soapboxy about that. There's a diagram, and it shows the curve of innovation. It goes from the printing press, and then it goes to the industrial age, and it goes to computer chip, and then, well, the innovation curve right now is basically straight up vertical. That's how fast we're innovating, and we're struggling to keep up. But we have an opportunity, to build back better, to build smart manufacturing facilities, smart factories that use less power, they're better neighbors to the community. We need to look at our energy in our data centers and do that, if we're going to reach net zero. We need to look at all types of fuel sources. We're moving away from fossil, but you're hearing a little more about SMRs and things like that. We're at an inflection point, and we're fighting for the same resources. It's going to take, academia, government, and industry. And I always say this, industry right now. We're making some efforts in the academia world, and we're starting to see nano certifications and nano degrees and micro certs, and then changing some of our programming. We're starting to address that. But the ROI on that, and we actually have a lot of STEM going out, and CTE, and that's for K-12. The ROI on that is several years out. For the immediate future, the upskilling, the workforce development, the heavy lifting is going to be on industry and folks like you, Stephen. I know you've made efforts along those lines. So applaud you for doing that. If we don't, the lights are going off. That's just reality. We need to, we're a data-driven world, and we need the Stephen Pettises of the world. We need those data centers, and we need the power, and we need all those things in sync. There's a stigma, and I'm going to ask you a question here a second. I'm getting soapboxy here. There's a stigma around manufacturing. A lot of folks, 87% of parents want their kids to get a traditional degree, and they don't really hold engineering in high esteem, right? And 84% distinctly do not want their children going into vocational careers or technicians, and we're trying to change that mindset. I think the pendulum is starting to move along those lines, and if we don't, we're going to have some issues. Any comments about that stigma and traditional degrees versus technicians? You see any holes in our educational system there?
Well, I think our educational system is taxed to catch up to the current reality, and I think that's more of a government bureaucracy challenge than anything else, because we're seeing tradespeople out there making more money than they've ever made before because they're so highly valued right now, which is fantastic to see. I have two kids. I have five kids, and two of them are in the trades, and they're very happy to be doing that work. It's very rewarding. It's not what it used to be. It used to be, I'm gonna break my back in 20 years, and I'm gonna be all crippled up. It's not that anymore. We have fantastic tools. We safety is paramount now, and it's highly valued by almost every client out there. So it's a different environment, and you can make a living wage. You can afford to buy a house. You can afford the American dream, working in the trades, and you don't have to break your back anymore. It's a great vocation. I think we should bring that back to the educational systems of America, because we need these folks as much as we need anybody else. It takes a team to get something done, and every job is important. So we need all of them. And right now, the trades are the highest demand that we have out there is to try to find enough electricians to build. Frankly, all of these buildings that we're building now are, highly electrified and have great networking systems and Wi-Fi systems and stuff like that. So the low voltage component is super important. So, I really advocate for, kids coming out of high school to seriously consider the trades, as just like you would consider the military or you would consider getting a college education. I think all of those things are equally important to be considered, so that they can find their dream and their happiness.
Stephen, thank you for those words. I'm not going to repeat them and echo them. Like I said, there is a stigma, and majority, you're unique, and I think it's because you have a perspective in the industry. Like I said, 87% of parents, don't see it that way, and I think it's a perception issue. And a lot of the folks that have in the show, we've talked about it, and we're trying to break down that perception. Here's a fact: manufacturing jobs pay 25 to 30% more than a national average, and that goes for data centers and the trades particularly. And you brought up, I always make the analogy: these factories aren't dark glum, full of soot. You don't go in with, you don't go in there, overalls and come out covered in dust and with a tin lunch pot. These are really cool facilities. And around here, we're banding around the term, manufacturing's cool, and some of my guests have actually picked up that mantra and are echoing it, which was kind of cool. So, yeah, manufacturing is cool. Data centers are cool. And you said it. We're making cutting edge stuff. You and I have worked together previously at a major manufacturer. I've been fortunate. I was at the factory. I was at Motorola in Austin, Texas, when we were making chips for the first Mac computers. And I was so proud of that. I knew what was going on a little bit before everybody. I thought I was, I had an inside foot. And then I was at Tesla before they were successful and they were starting to put their product out. I've been part of that leading edge and stuff, and I'm very, very proud of those things. And these are really cool facilities. Manufacturing is cool, and we need to work on that perception stuff. So I'm glad to hear that two of your sons are in the trades. You're an electrical engineer, so that's third generation in the electrical business. And that's awesome. Well, folks, that's all we have time for. This is Rory Francis, and you've been watching another episode of Igniting Manufacturing. See you again soon. Thanks.